Good morning. 3 months after it was confirmed that the state's first COVID-19 case was right here in St. Louis County, our lives have changed like we could have never imagined. Over 6,000 residents in our county have tested positive, and 450 have lost their lives. St. Louis County issued one of the first stay-at-home orders in the country, and this helped us save hundreds of lives and avoid the devastation that we have seen across the country and across the globe. But this has come at a cost to our community. We know that this came at a price for our businesses, and that's why we have moved forward with a slow and cautious and deliberate process to open our businesses safely, with guidelines that have been developed with our Department of Public Health, along with our business leaders and local industry experts. On Monday, June 8th, bars will open, and on June 15th, remaining businesses will open, including casinos, movie theaters, banquet halls, pools, and others. Sports leagues for youth and adults will allow some play as well. The guidelines are different for youth and adults, so I would encourage all of you to look at stlcorona.com for the exact details. We believe that these summertime activities can be enjoyed safely. As we move into the summer, testing capacity continues to improve. We're now testing 1,200 residents per day in St. Louis County, and throughout the state, testing is becoming more accessible. This may be perhaps why yesterday the state reported 290 new cases of COVID-19, the highest daily report in more than a month. The more we test, the more positive results we will see. We continue to also watch the reports from Dr. Garza and the St. Louis Metropolitan Pandemic Task Force, and they have reported to us that hospitalizations are declining, ICU admissions and ventilator uses are declining as well. We will continue to beat the drum of social distancing and personal responsibility because we know it works. We continue to talk about hand washing because we know that that prevents the spread of the virus as well. We must continue to be vigilant in cleaning hard surfaces, doorknobs, and countertops, not just at home, but also in our places of business. By the end of the day today, our St. Louis County Department of Public Health will have distributed over 6,000 masks. 200,000 masks have gone through Catholic Charities to get to vulnerable families in our community, and another 22,000 will be distributed through the YMCA to get to kids in our community through their summer camps. Masks and other PPE are made available through purchases funded by the Federal CARES Stimulus Grant, and this funding and spending can be followed on our stlcorona.com webpage at the Transparency portal, or you could also follow our weekly reports at the St. Louis County Council Oversight Committee on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Earlier this week, I was pleased to announce the County Cares Humanitarian Relief Program. This includes investments in child care, senior and homebound programs, technology and housing services, all for our most vulnerable residents in our community. Today, I'm excited to announce that we're committing an additional $5 million in federal funds to help our residents fund their basic needs at home. About $2 million will be spent on homeless prevention services for people who are on the verge of homelessness, or homeless, or people who need some additional support to keep them and their families together and safe in their home. Another $3 million will be spent for rental assistance and mortgage assistance for low and middle income residents to help them with financial support when they need it to get through this time of crisis in their lives, which of course is a direct result of our public health emergency. We know that affordable and safe housing is a significant component of a person's health. When someone is safely housed, then they have more time and attention to spend on their medical needs. I do think that this is a vital intersection between health and public housing and a safe home, and it's never been more clear than it is today. This additional investment in housing brings to a total of $12 million that St. Louis County is investing to keep our most vulnerable residents in a stable and safe and healthy home. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
you have anything just to say as we go into the weekend? Any words of wisdom or final thoughts? We have to do another weekend. I think the weather is going to be nice.
Yeah, we just remember, remember wear a mask, social distancing. We take this stuff seriously. If you're out involved in a march or protest, we definitely respect your right to be involved in that. Yesterday was a great example of a safe and thoughtful protest, which was peaceful. And we all respect the message that we're receiving and respect the protesters who are participating in events like yesterday. We respect them a great deal. We thought that was a very safe and peaceful demonstration of their commitment to change in our community. We'll be watching this closely. We will be vigilant in our response to any activity that we do not believe is peaceful, and we will give our Department of Public Safety and our law enforcement the opportunity to respond to that. But I am encouraged with events such as yesterday, which were very thoughtful and peaceful and organized and very well managed.
What do you have to say to people who, I think, as echoing what you said about everyone respecting the message of the protests, respecting the protest, wanting to be involved in something like that. At the same time, a lot of places are trying to find plexiglass in order to open up, and it feels like there's two competing messages here in terms of the social distancing and then the message to get involved and participate in this very important message. How does that kind of align? Can you respond to that? Because a lot of concerns right now are saying, what's the point of all of this phasing back into things?
We're in a very important conversation in history of our country about civil rights, about equity and inclusion, and not just equity and the intersection between law enforcement and our community, but also in all spaces, all complex policy questions, public health, public housing, jobs, education. This equity question touches a lot of things in our life. The death of George Floyd in Minnesota by a police officer is startling, it's horrifying, and it's brought this front and center, and it's driving this civil rights conversation that we need to have as a community, and it's very important that we have it. We can have this conversation safely, and it needs to be had. And we have to respect the rights of people who want to march, and want to organize, and want to demonstrate their commitment to change. It's a very important conversation to have. It needs to be done safely. It needs to be done with social distancing. People need to wear a mask, and people need to be thoughtful in this protest. If they cannot wear a mask, then they should be subject to the same restrictions as anyone else. And if they're not social distancing when they're involved in these events, they really should quarantine because they are risking the spread of this virus in our community.
What do you say to business owners right now who may be concerned about further spread or frustrated with the fact that so many people are out in the streets right now but they still can't reopen yet?
Well, we're going to give them safe guidelines to reopen, and we're going to make sure that we're doing everything possible to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in a business, in a place of business, in a community setting. We're working very closely with them to make sure it's safe, and we're working very closely to time all of these events in a way that's responsible. As we see COVID-19 cases increase in the community, as we do more testing, we really need to do everything we can to prevent the spread. There are always going to be competing interests. We're always going to manage those interests in a way that protects civil discourse in our community, protects above all else the health and welfare of everyone in our community, and that's what we're going to be committed to doing. I would like to remind everyone before I leave that today is Wear Orange Day. It's our commitment to recognize gun violence in our community and recognize those who have lost their lives. This is something we all need to be thinking about. Another question of equity in our community, and that's something we need to give a lot of attention and respect to. Thank you. Yes.
One more question real quick. Today, you mentioned George Floyd a lot. Today is also Breonna Taylor's birthday. Is there anything you'd like to say about that case?
I just think that we all need to recognize that there are many examples of this in our community. George Floyd has been the most recent, the most visual, and the one that has driven this conversation to the intensity that it is today. And it's time that we take this seriously. It's time we listen to those who are marching, who are organizing, and it's really time that we take a deep look into all questions of equity and inclusion, complex policy questions in our society. And the one that's foremost right now is our relationship with law enforcement in our community and what that looks like, and we need to be talking about it. Thank you.
I had no idea. That's neat.
Thanks.